Today we have ICBA in the house. Jon Bibo and Denise Walsh are joining us in a lovely conversation. Myra Haley's here in the studio with me as well. And welcome, first and foremost.
Go ahead, Denise. Thank you so much. I was so excited when Myra called. I thought, wow, this will be really a new experience. And it's, why not try something new?
Right. And for us, as soon as Denise said, hey, Myra, throw this out. Are you interested? I said, I'm in. So we're happy to have a good discussion. You guys are a great partner, and we're happy to talk about the industry.
Well, I think it's a very interesting industry that we all operate in. And when you look at the college landscape and the independent operation of stores, there's a ton of creativity that comes into how you go to market. And excited to dive into that today with you guys. So, Myra.
Looking forward to it.
Well, I am happy that you guys were excited to be here because I'm always excited when we get to do these events and record with individuals because, we've all got this long storied history in the collegiate market. So I think we could just get right into it. And I think one of the things we always want to hear is more about your experience within that college industry, talking about insights on your journey, how it began. My fun fact is I don't think anyone ever starts out in the collegiate retail experience. And then we always kind of find these great people that are living in those spaces. So let's talk a little bit about where your journey began.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. Well, interesting. My retail journey actually started in more traditional retail.
I love it.
And so I was doing, mall retail stores. I knew all the malls in the country. And then I got a phone call from a recruiter saying, don't you want to work for this really big retailer in Chicago? And that company was Follett. And although I'm not on the Follett team anymore, obviously, and we have different missions, it was my entry into the college market. And I had never really thought about what it takes to get those products to the students. And so that was a really fun experience for me. I had been working in, as I said, specialty retail stores, which really gave me the opportunity to understand that every store is unique. Because even though they were national chains, every assortment could still be tweaked a little bit. And so I really took that philosophy with me to Follett and thought, okay, I could do this. I can learn about colleges, their mascots, their school colors, and still treat them as unique institutions, even though we were doing things from a more centralized approach. And so that's really what I took to the college market. And I was... I learned a lot. The pace wasn't quite as fast as traditional retail, but I liked that everybody cared so much. There was a lot of passion in those stores, making sure they got the right products. And so it really helped me to learn some skills that I didn't have to really consider when you're making those decisions for your retail stores, like really considering what is it they need, listening to how they feel it's unique. Even though it might be ever so slight, it's still super important. And so that was really how I transitioned into the college industry.
Yeah, and for me, it's actually, Myra, it is pretty much starting out. I mean, I had worked at a couple mall stores. Those of you that remember the 1980s might remember that there were photo development places. So I was one of those guys that did the 1 hour photo development. And I worked at a tennis pro shop, but really I was a student at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, walked into the store one day and said, I need a job. And they said, okay, you're in school and office supplies. So I did start in that area as really my first real job per se. I would go to classes from 8 to 12 and eat lunch and then work at the bookstore every day from 2 to 5. And that worked out pretty well. And what was key there is I had a really progressive thinking boss. Some folks in the industry will remember this name. It's from quite a few years ago, but Jim Petruccio. And he was a real retailer. And he thought that the store could do much more than just be a store. He wanted to be a departmental supplier. He wanted to support other stores. Case Western in Ohio, other Ohio stores that maybe were smaller. So he was a very progressive thinker, and he was very supportive of me. He maybe saw something in me, and had me come to all the staff meetings. And even though I was a student, he really treated me like a full-time member of the team. So it was really exciting. And like Denise said, just that idea of caring and students, the faculty, the staff, all the opportunities really sort of excited me. And then when I graduated, they hired me full-time and went on from there. So I did start out in that environment, but it really helped me grow pretty quickly.
I love that. I started in the college market as well, but it was never my plan. I walked into my college bookstore. The same thing was like, hey, I'm looking for a job, hired basically on the spot for fall rush. And then when I graduated, I took a management position, but we didn't start out to go into the college market.
No, I was a music major. I was going to be a rock star, and I'm still living that to this day. So the one thing that will take me out of the industry is when the band that I'm in does break internationally huge, and then I'll be out.
The world tour.
That's right. Starting any day now.
No, I love this. And you look at the background in retail and where everyone gets their feet wet and the introduction into this space in higher ed that is really unique. And you mentioned it, Denise, every campus is different. Every store is different. And we have a saying internally where every campus is a snowflake. It's a campus, it's a snowflake, but everyone is a little bit different and a little bit unique in the brands that they bring, how you engage with them, and the things that are relevant in that region or that specific campus. When you look at, the present, how do you bring in different brands that are relevant within an independent operation? And how does that create opportunity to engage the campus community in a different way?
Yeah, I would say, again, listening and always curious about what is going on in those individual stores. Obviously, we look at a lot of industry data, and both for traditional retail, but also for the college market. And, so we have those insights that we bring with us when we're looking. We go to market, we go to, trade shows and to find emerging trends and to see what's happening. And then we find ways to try to bring those back to our members. When they come to us and say they're looking for gaps, then we look for things for them. But one way that we do this specifically at ICBA is prior to my joining ICBA, there was a program created, I believe Jon created it, called The Leading Edge. And The Leading Edge is where we have a group of stores who have really raised their hand to say, I want to learn about new emerging trends or new brands or new opportunities or ways to increase, streams of revenue as the industry has changed. And so we try to, when we find something, and we just find it organically. We don't go out and always say, okay, we're looking for this, or like it just kind of in our experiences and what we're looking through. And then we're able to present it to this group of stores, a smaller segment of our membership, and get their ideas, gauge their interest, understand, is this something that is viable or not? Sometimes we're going to find something really great. Sometimes it might be a dud, but we have to try. And so that's what we are trying to do, is always being open to what might be out there, and thinking about how could this adapt to stores. And our stores are very diverse. Large stores, smaller schools, commuter schools versus athletic schools. Like there's just so many characteristics that differentiate the schools. And so we have to make sure we're open and not discount something, because you never know. It might be the next great thing.
Yes. No, I think that's a great point. The diversity of campuses that are out there, from, your Ivy level private institutions to state schools to community colleges. It's a very diverse portfolio that exists within the ICBA realm. And I think when you look at that transition that you talked about, Jon, from traditional bookstore to a campus store and being more of a department offering, and a merchandising eye for those things over time, that's a really interesting transition that has taken place.
2 points I'd like to add to what Denise said. And of course, we're advocates for the independent operation of a college store. And we think capturing that uniqueness of each institution is better suited to an independent store than one of the chain stores, because the chain stores, by their nature, are setting home office assortments for the entire country. And they're trying to be as efficient, and they're smart people. I mean, they're good retailers. We respect the heck out of that. But if you talk about how do you maximize a local assortment for a particular institution with its own unique traditions and standards, an independent store we think is best suited to do that. And the other point I'll make is that we spend as much time working with the vendor community and getting them excited about our channel. Our phone rings off the hook. Denise and Mitchell Presky on our team field a ton of calls. As she said, they go to a lot of different shows. We're always keeping our eyes and ears open. And there's a lot of brands that have had success getting a foothold in the college store market. A little company named Apple worked with college stores in the 1980s. I think they turned out to do pretty well. But people like JanSport, Vitamin Water, and many others really got a foothold. So we can tell that story to brands and get them excited. Sometimes I say, if our phone stops ringing at ICBA, then maybe I'll get a little nervous. But the good news is our phone does not stop ringing, and people truly are excited to work with our member campuses to get to that student with their brand story.
Yeah.
I think that's so true when you think about the snowflake or the uniqueness, but then brands and how they can transcend like nationally. These are things that are popular. But I love the fact of having that autonomy at this level of looking at local retailers that might play such a major impact or manufacturers. I always love when I can go into a campus store that might have a local chocolatier or something that is unique to maybe even geographically the area and how they tie into surroundings. Some of our campuses are located next to national parks. They're in beautiful cities. And when they're able to tie into that unique thing that is so specific to their campus or to their community, I think that makes such an impact when you look at their brand and how they're able to respond.
Well, and they're even going beyond that in some campuses where they are, UC Davis, they have honey that's made there on campus, olive oil that's produced there on campus. University of Wyoming has meats that are produced there. So I think it's really showing how they are part of the local community and how they're supporting, in many cases, the institution, but perhaps even some of those local other businesses that are, favorites for the area.
I love that. And you have just different ones. A lot of campuses might have creameries and things like that, but University of Utah is the only campus in the United States who has a chocolate. They bring in the cocoa pods and all of this. I had a wonderful tour of that. And so it is those unique things that provide this different retail experience or this different product lines that make them stand out.
Absolutely.
And I'll add that we see a lot of our members, as they're diversifying their assortments, looking for new sources of revenue, are looking at the local geography. So University of Pittsburgh is now doing more with Pittsburgh product, not necessarily the University of. I know Colgate in central New York is also carrying product from that geography, not necessarily the university. And so they're sort of tying into the local community and even the students too on campus to say, no, our area, whether it's a unique geographic characteristic or just the city has a cool vibe or whatever it is, to expand with some merchandise that's not necessarily university related.
Exactly, because you're able to bring in those additional things. And I do realize it's Utah State that has the only chocolate. Sorry about that. Utah State.
That's the only state I don't think I've ever been to is Utah. I need to make a trip out there.
Oh, 100%.
It's a great trip.
It is a beautiful state. Some of our friends out there tell you not to tell other people because they don't want to be invaded, but it is one of my favorite states.
Yeah, when you look at the diverse offering you have from products and marrying that with the diverse portfolio you have with the types of schools that exist within the ICBA, are there overarching goals or challenges you're hearing across the campuses that they exist within? And how does that come into how you provide a service offering to these independent operations?
Yeah, I'll take that one a little bit. I'm involved more and more with administrators, so I'm hearing some of their challenges and concerns, whether it's the auxiliary services directors, the business officers, that filters down certainly to the stores. So, it's one that's not hard to mention here. It's pretty obvious, but revenue generation and financial return. A lot of the institutions during COVID got subsidies, financial subsidies to get them through a very tough time for everybody, and those are running out. And so at those conferences, there's a lot of concern and panic, whether it's the auxiliaries or other areas, to bring more of a bottom line. And so at the same time, that can run into some conflicts with things like driving course materials affordability. So the stores who are very mission driven first, profit driven second, say, well, I'll do whatever I need to, whether it's carrying open education resource materials or carrying more discounted product to help with affordability. Yet my institution is also asking me to drive a bigger bottom line. So I think that sort of revenue generation, profit generation, is a key. And so we spend a lot of time trying to do that and help our members find new sources where they can realize new incremental revenue. One of the areas that we stress a lot is selling more to the departments, being more of a campus-wide supplier, things of that nature to sort of address that issue.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And, the internal side of campus, that department side, that's our bread and butter, and it tends to be the wild, wild west and the great unknown on a lot of campuses. So having the campus store enter that conversation as a resource back to the campus that they serve is a huge tool and a huge asset to maximize in that conversation.
At our conference in Denver, just this past one, we have a session called ICBA Innovators where we identify 4 stores. We could identify dozens and dozens of members doing innovative stuff. But McMaster University, one of our Canadian members, we featured them because they have a departmental sales arm called Crested at Mac. They've sort of sub-branded it, and they do over $1 million a year.
Oh, wow.
And it's taken time, but they've earned the trust of the departments, and a lot of it gets channeled through. And we say things like, if a department goes to 4mprint.com or customink.com instead of the store, then we're losing out. We can't let that happen. We can't settle for that.
Right.
Which is one of the places that we come in because of the internal branding and what we do, and being an annual vendor partner to the ICBA to support those needs as well, which is one of the key reasons for us, is because we helped with that revenue concern.
That's why we like you.
Well, and it also brings added value. It shows how the store is being innovative and really trying to engage with the institution, with the community, and really being part of that culture and bringing value, not just through their own part of the business, but really to those departments, finding them value, finding them the unique items that they want, through services like yours. So it helps them also create that credibility. Yeah. That's super important for them to be able, because when they're evaluating ROI, sure, a lot of it is dollars and cents, but there's a lot of soft, soft aspects of that, not things you can quantify, that are important. And hopefully these are some of those things.
Absolutely. And Jon, you mentioned, mission-driven stores, and there's a handful of them within the ICBA where you look at their mission is to give back to student experience, or to give back to student activities, or to drive scholarship funds. And all of this is happening on a campus anyway. So to your point, by having the bookstore bring a resource to the table that can address this internal function of the university, it just helps fund, or not fund, but drive those conversations on campus when it's student activities or student events, scholarships. It all connects.
And one of the big trends in the industry, and we may touch on this a little bit later as well, is that in the minds of administrators coming through COVID, the independent stores, it was palpable that they were mission-driven and service-driven. And whether they had to spend 70 or 80 hours a week trying to figure out how to get e-commerce orders out or whatever it might be. And the chains, and not picking on anyone in particular, really focused, as you might expect, a little bit more on profit first and service and mission second. So coming out of COVID, there's been a real pendulum swing in the industry where administrators are saying, hey, you know what? Maybe there are some advantages to self-operating my store. Maybe I want to retain control of this. Maybe I want to focus on those areas. And so that's become a bigger part of our discussions with administrators. And it's been a real feather in the cap of all the independent stores who worked so hard during that time to focus on service.
Yeah. Service goes a long way. It really can.
You show your true colors when times are tough, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it also showed, it kind of removed the bureaucracy, because they already were connected and already could adapt and adjust. They were a little more agile. Yeah. And I think that's what's also important. And to Jon's point there, that just showed the value of having the independent operation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And agility in those times where you have to provide an answer to your campus, you have to find a way to deliver. It's a huge, huge tool. Great call out, Denise. When it comes to, all of these talking points, we're talking about how you advise campus stores today. Are there other words of wisdom that you're seeing across the collegiate landscape on the independent side, that when you look at, process changes, system implementations, things that are happening on campus that change how people maybe are thinking or operating? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I will say that we think, and we feel very passionate about this, that the store can elevate their role on the campus to tie in much more to the strategic plan, whether it's the 6 pillars or the 5-point plan or whatever it is, to say, hey, I'm not just the reactive retailer over here. I can be part of the brand strategy. With undergraduate tuitions, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000, that return on investment, the ROI of an undergraduate degree is really under fire right now.
Yeah.
And so for institutions, getting students overall, because there are some enrollment declines, as you may know, and having them graduate becomes more and more important. So to the extent that the store can be a bigger part of that story, imprinting the brand, making sure the customer has a great experience, the customer now being not just the student, but siblings, the family members. So we think the store can elevate their role and say to their campus, hey, I can help you with your larger initiatives to promote our whole institution. I want to help be a flagship for this brand with the merchandise I carry. I want to be, when students first come to campus, I want to make a big impression that we're unique, we're special, we're home for you, that there's a real emotional connection to the campus. So we're encouraging our members to take steps in that direction to say, hey, I can do more. I can be more than just what you think of as the traditional bookstore.
And I love that the emotional connection to campus. I think for myself, when I was going through the selection process of where I was going to go to school, there was that moment where I was like, this feels like home. This feels like the right fit for me. And every student that's at whatever university, they're going to have that time where they're connected with the campus for a special way. And having that store, it's that first touch point often when you go to campus. All right, I got to go get my first t-shirt. I got to go get my first piece of merchandise for this university I'm attending. And having that be a part of that experience, I think, is a fundamental piece of the pie when it comes to how you engage with campus and how you create that experience. And ultimately, how you foster a deeper connection with the campus community, which all starts with the student.
I think it comes from the campus as well. When you think about everything that happens on the campus, I think that campus store becomes a bridge. It connects everything that can happen on the campus, but we're seeing it here. You mentioned like a decline in enrollment, looking at
the enrollment
students,
cliff.
Yeah, that's coming through. It's going to be competitive. And I think some of those things that you have to look at, and we see it, we work with tons of admissions teams in providing like unique things that really pop, that stand out, that resonate with the person that they're trying to connect with. But it's not just about that student anymore. It truly is like this family engagement, and also looking at those siblings that could be next in line and what's their experience on those tours.
Well, and also like just leaving, like keeping them after they graduate, whether they seek additional education through grad programs, or just as an alum, depending on, and having that pride. I think that's what makes the college market so special is that we all get to be involved in people's lives at such a critical time and such an important time. And it covers the whole family. It's not just like the student, the parents are proud, grandparents proud, aunts and uncles. It could be their first generation. So there's so many, like, it's just such a warm feeling. And so, yes, the culture of the campus is important. And we believe the campus store is an important part of that. And the way they engage with all aspects, the students, the parents, the fast staff and faculty. I'll never forget a story that Fred Weber mentioned and some of you may know Fred from ICBA and his long time work with independent stores. And so, but he shared with me once a story about how the campus store would be like the parent to students away from home, because especially, it's changed a little bit, of course, but not entirely, where when they need to know something, it's not just about buying their logo product. It's not just about getting their course materials, but they have questions about all aspects of campus life. And so their out of classroom experience, a lot of that intersects with the campus bookstore and the people that work there. And so, and I think that's an important thing to remember. And I hope that all of our ICBA members recognize their value and what they're bringing to the institution and to the students, which totally fits into the mission of the institution.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's almost like the store is another ambassador for the university because they do play that crucial role of educating mom, dad, parents, the students, like what's the best club? How do I get here? What I do about this. I think that is a perfect, summing up how the campus plays a role. They do kind of step into this guidance role. And if people knew the questions that are asked of bookstore, campus store employees, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, I think back to your point of, the family at large, and it's not just the student, it's a whole community that becomes a part of this brand identity, this part of this journey that the student's on. I think for myself, I went to the University of Iowa. I grew up a big Notre Dame and Illini fan. And when I made that transition to another Big Ten school, all of a sudden, all the family was wearing black and gold. It wasn't the orange and navy anymore. So it's that pivotal moment, though, where all of a sudden, because a family member goes one way, now you've opened up the brand to an entire new community. And it's not that Dad doesn't root for the Illini anymore. He still does. But he's adopted the Hawkeyes.
Hey,
and it's interesting. Yeah.
House divided.
It is. I'm married to a White Sox fan and I'm a Cubs fan, so I'm very familiar with the house divided concept.
Well, as you may know, one of the surging areas in terms of sales are things that are the vintage logos and what they call the vault logos, which tap into the nostalgia. And so the college experience is a lifetime experience. And so when schools have brought back a limited edition logo or something from the 30s or 40s, I know, for instance, John Perry at Colorado State, their colors are green and athletic gold, but orange was a color that they had back in the day, and they've brought that back selectively, and people go really crazy for it in a great way. And so that tapping into that emotional connection to your institution is something that is really valuable and that our members can do.
On those vintage marks and those vault logos, what a hot market in the college retail space. I mean, is that something you guys see a large trend with just across the different independent stores?
Yeah, merchandising. I just attended a CLC licensing seminar, which was very valuable, and they talked about tapping into rivalries, milestones, tradition, and campus characteristics. So campus characteristics could be a clock tower or a river or an arch or something like that. And rivalries speak for self, milestones and tradition. And whatever you can do to continue to foster that emotional connection from a retailer standpoint, and I don't mean to be cold about it, equal sales and typically higher margin sales. So it's good. The people enjoy it, and it gives a higher profit selling opportunity to retailers.
Well, and it adds to the experience.
Absolutely.
Like all of a sudden, you're not just selling stuff; you're actually creating, that emotional connection in a different way, and that creates experience. So even if a customer doesn't buy it at that time, you still create that top of mind for something in the future.
Yeah. Outside of the vintage realm, then, obviously that was something you attended at the CLC meeting and learned a little bit more about. Are there other trends that you're seeing right now?
I think something that obviously has become really important with because of Gen Z, our current, college students, is that they are certainly more socially conscious. And they really want to buy brands that align with their values. Yep. Now, they're a little bit conflicted with that, for sure. And that's because of social media. But they do really just have a little more awareness, I believe, than maybe some of the previous,
us millennials.
Age groups. Yeah. And so so there's more care and interest in sustainability. So recycle, upcycle, repurpose, vintage. Yep. So not just the logos, the vault logos, but also like actually bringing in, vintage product. Like Cornell works with a local store, and they bring in collections, and they literally sell out every time they bring that merchandise in, and they bring it in for like little pockets of time. And
That's amazing.
so I think it's just in a world where we realize we don't need to always have something brand new, that feeling of having something that is old or that you're repurposing is really, maybe you're doing some good at the same time that you're like showing your spirit.